It's been a little too long, and that's on us. He's Mike Westhoff, 30-plus years as a football coach in the NFL and college before that, 10 years with the legendary Don Shula. And Mike joins us right now. Mike, how you been? How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm doing great. I'm like all of us. It's a very quiet time right now, and so I'm kind of going about my own business, riding my bike and exercising and staying away from everyone. And actually, I'm in a process. I'm writing a book now, and
wow.
I've done a lot of work. I've got someone helping me, of course, and so most of my time is spent doing that. So it's a great chance to do it, and I'm taking advantage of it.
What brought this on, Coach? I mean, writing a book is no easy task, and we've talked to a lot of people. There's no money in it, so what brought this up? This, like you said, it's a lot of work. Why?
I'm going to make a few dollars, and then I'm going to you watch. I'm going to do it. But I think I'm in sometimes right place, right time. I'm not going to go back and work with the media. I don't want to travel back to New York. I'm not going to coach any longer. I went back for those 2 years at New Orleans, which were a great situation. I loved it. But enough's enough. I had 32 years in the NFL, and so that part of my life's going to change. And the thing with the media, I didn't want to travel back to New York all the time to do that, so I don't want to do that. And I kind of want to wrap this up. That what I did all those years in the National Football League as a special teams coach has dramatically changed in the NFL. It's not even the job that I had doesn't exist today. It's just so different. And I'm going to talk about it. I want to write about the experiences of what took place with, not the guy that you hear about every day on the news, but about the average NFL player that came out of nowhere, kind of the underdog, and the impact that they had on the National Football League. And I've got incredible stories, and I'm getting these guys who are actually all, when I talk to them and I interview them and I let them actually write it, and I tell them, write it or talk about it like you lived it. And I don't care what language however you want to say it, you say it. And it's really it's pretty cool. It's good. It's a story that I think anyone is going to enjoy picking up and reading. That's my goal. And I'm getting close. I'm not terribly far from it, but it's a lot of work. Whoa, it's a lot of work. But I'm pounding away.
All right. Well, and Mike, when that book is finished, we certainly want to talk to you about it. I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but when Don Shula hired you, wasn't that the beginning of your 30-plus years in the NFL? And if so, how did you get hired by him? How did he find you?
No, it was not. Actually, the beginning of my 30-some years was several years before that. Frank Cush hired me at the Baltimore Colts.
Gotcha.
And my story with him is a remarkable story. I won't tell it now, but and I was in Baltimore. I was part of that midnight move when we moved from Baltimore to Indianapolis, and then and I actually was coaching offensive line and tight ends. I was a strength coach at one time. I had all these different jobs. And I took over our special teams with the Colts, and we played the Miami Dolphins and really did very well against them. And Don Shula remembered that, and a year or so later, he then contacted me and brought me in to interview the coach tight ends, help with the offensive line, because, staffs were very small back then, and be a special teams coach. That's how that took place. Actually, Don Shula, they were coaching the Pro Bowl, and Ron Stark, the great punter for the Colts, was their punter, and they talked about me, and then he brought me in and interviewed me, and then I went to work for Coach Shula.
How did your coaching philosophy gel with that of Coach Shula? Or I guess maybe even vice versa, Mike, how did Coach Shula tell you to adjust your philosophy to his when you came to work with him?
That's a good point. To be honest with you, the philosophy you better have was just work as hard as you could and pretty much do what he told you. Because he was the boss. And so it wasn't as though I had to make many adjustments. It was just a learning process. Don Shula was a very complete coach. He was one of the few coaches, maybe ever in history, that could coach every guy. I mean, he could coach all the positions. He was an expert on the rules. And so you better learn them. You better learn what's going on and be able to teach it a particular way. He was very, very demanding. Our practices were very difficult. Actually, they were tough. One thing I did learn, and I actually expressed this to some people over years, different guys I worked with or coaches I was with, our training camp, our prayer were probably as tough as I've ever seen anywhere, but yet they were also the shortest. He was never on the field during training camp for more than an hour and 25 minutes. But that hour and 25 minutes, whoa, you better get ready, because it was tough. But he just had a belief, in Miami it's hot, get the players off the field. He was very, very smart with those things. I mean, he was a brilliant coach, and he constantly adjusted. Yeah, there was no such thing as it's over. I'll never forget a scout one time right before the draft said, the hay's in the barn. Oh, my goodness gracious, that poor guy. He lit into him. The hay was never in the barn. Never. He just kept evolving. That's why he was able to transition from, cloud of dust with Larry Zonka to Dan Marino, throwing the ball all over the place. He could do that. And as a coach working for him, you better be able to do it in every single fashion. And that's the thing that I think I learned, and I was able to use it throughout my whole career, was that part with Don. And so philosophy, no, it was just a work ethic. Get in, know the game, and other thing, do it the right way. He's never one that's getting involved in the cheating or whatever. Don was really a very, very dignified person and handled his business in that manner.
Well, and it's why the controversies with the Patriots really bothered him. I mean, the first time that there was a Patriots controversy, I think he tried to give Belichick and them the benefit of the doubt. But a few years ago, I mean, he literally every time somebody brought up Belichick would call him Belicheat. I mean, it really bothered him that he felt that he was not doing things in some occasions the right way. We're talking with Mike Westhoff, 10 years. He was a part of Don Shula's staffs in Miami. Mike, I saw a clip of when he got hired yesterday, and he was asked a question. Do you have a 3-year plan? Do you have a 5-year plan? And he looked at the reporter and he said, all I know is I'm going to go get to work now. So it's interesting to me to hear you talk about he demanded that you work hard, and he literally said it from his opening press conference until his final day. Mike, that seems so simple. I mean, doesn't everyone work hard?
It's just, I think the thing with Don did is he was never afraid to change. He always believed that there was another way to do it, that you could do it better. He would, sometimes the worst thing he could say to you, when you come down and say, why are they doing it like that? Oh, my goodness. You get under your desk and try to hide like George Costanza did, live under there. That's what you wanted to do when he came down the hall after you. Because he was always on top of it, to keep going, to keep finding a way, to practice it. I mean, he taught me a lesson. One of the things he told me, I remember I went to New Orleans Saints. When I was at the Saints, I went in there and, I kind of brought in the middle of the year, and I'm changing everything. And they were doing they had done some drills. And Don Shula was not a big drill person. He told me one time, don't ever let me see you doing a mindless drill. I was coaching the offensive line. If you were going to tell the offensive line you're going to block the sled, it was never, all right, let's go right shoulder. No, you had to call a play in which they knew they had to then block with their right shoulder. That's just the way he did it. There was always a thinking part of everything he did. I carried that through my entire career, every single thing I did, and I think it's one of the reasons why I have as many of the records that anyone has in that part of the game, and I got it right from him. He just never, ever stopped. He always, and he would study what someone else did. He might not change it, but he would look at it and see how he could wrinkle it, and he just kept doing it. There was an evolving. And he never stopped with it. And he was just a great teacher, and he loved that part of it. He just loved it. He just loved. He would come into my office every Wednesday. I'll never forget it. 6:30. I mean, he would walk in, and there was the second he walked in, the meeting started. When we would start, instantly, boom, and away we'd go. I used to have this special chair. Only he was allowed to sit in. I kept it in my office for years. And he'd come in, he'd sit down, he'd lean back, and he'd say, "Okay, what do you got?" And we'd start on our plan. And he was not easy to deal with. I mean, you had to fight. There's nothing. I'd have something, a punt block that I loved, and he wouldn't like it, and we'd battle back and forth. And it wasn't easy to beat him either. He was tough, but he was so smart. But I love that part of it. I love that challenge. And believe me, he would challenge you. He challenged us all, and it never stopped because he never stopped challenging himself.
I think you said he was tough and he challenged you, countless times. But the one thing we keep hearing, and that you had to challenge him, is that he was fair. So it sounds like through all of that, Mike, because you obviously won some arguments over doing a punt coverage or whatever the case may be, how difficult was it to persuade him to your line of thinking?
It was not easy. It was not easy. You had to prove it many different ways. But the one thing, if he saw it, and he knew all of a sudden, it would like a light went on. He'd look at it and go, that's not bad. That's not bad. Let's take a look at it. Take a look. Let me know what you think. Look at it. Let's go. He would go along with that. But you better do your homework. You better be able to prove it. I remember a time we were arguing about a block thing that we had run against the Patriots. And I knew we did it twice. I was sure of it. He kept arguing we only did it once. Well, I finally proved it. He looked at me, I won't say exactly what he said. But at the same time, he could acquiesce in that regard. But you had to do your homework. He challenged you. But you hit the right word. He was fair. He was as fair he could be very demanding, but he was extremely fair. I see coaches, and I've worked with a couple that they end up firing a lot of people. They make changes. Not Don. He just changed who you were. He didn't have to fire somebody. He would come in and say, all right, we're going to do it like this. And so he was, he was going to solve the problem, not fix the blame. And he did that with players. He was never afraid. Sometimes, you can't have players. You have to make changes, and you have to make cuts, and you make trades, and all those types of things. Of course, that's part of the business. But Don was a fair man, very fair. I think fair to the players and fair to anyone that worked for him. I always believed that. I have the deepest respect for that part of who he was.
Mike Westhoff, over 30 years coaching in the NFL, 10 of them with Don Shula and the Dolphins, reflecting on the life and career of the legendary coach here on Miller and Moulton. He never wore a headset, and I got the impression that Shula, much like Bob Knight, they did their coaching during the week, and then on Sundays, he trusted his quarterbacks with the plays. Did he trust you to call the fake punt? Because the most famous fake punt of his career was in the 72 AFC Championship game when they're undefeated and they're losing to the Steelers. And he said, hey, the punter had the green light. If he saw that they turned their backs and they started running, he could take off with it. Of course, he had to be right. And I'm wondering, did he give you the freedom to call what you wanted during the game, but you just needed to be right?
That's really a good question. In that game, that was Larry Seipel that ran that punt. He was also a kind of hybrid running back, wide receiver, halfback type guy, and Larry could do that stuff very well. And there was a green light. Pittsburgh ran a big wall return where they would hit and peel to a big wall and then run the ball over to that wall. That's what they were doing, and they knew in that field position they would go to the wide field with that. So Larry Seipel took that step like he was going to punt it, and then he ran. He ran around where that wall was all running, going to, they were all running the opposite direction, and Larry just ran to that one. With that, fake punts, I did not have a green light on. I did not. And Coach would want him to do that. Everything else, I pretty much did not. He and I would talk about punt, like punt block situations. He liked that. He just loved it, and he always wanted to be involved in that. Everything else, he let me call anything I wanted at any time. Now, in my career, I had a green light even when I went to New Orleans with Sean Payton, who's a very, very good football coach, by the way. I had all the stuff we ran down there with Taysom Hill. I called all of that. Actually, Sean really, tell you the truth, didn't even know it sometimes. He would look at me like I was crazy after I did it, but it always worked. I was pretty darn good at it. And he used to say, "You're going to tell me once in a while, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I get you, don't worry." It was pretty cool. But no, with Don, there's certain things that I did not have a green light on. No one did, because he loved. He managed the game. You mentioned, the headset. A lot of people don't know this. When we had that high-powered offense, Marino, Duper, Clayton, Coach Shula called the plays. or he would call a situation or a number like a code, and then Marino would have 2 or 3 plays from that code. But Don called those plays with from the sideline with no script. He had a script tucked in his back pocket. He just called them off the top of his head. Or he'd call, give me an orange package, Dan. And then Dan he'd come up to the line and he'd have 3 or 4 plays that Dan would call. But that was all orchestrated ahead of time. But Coach Shula did it from the sideline, but he loved them. He managed the game. He saw the whole game as it progressed. Very few coaches do that. And some in the NFL actually today that have coordinator backgrounds are terrible at it. They're terrible at game management. They can't manage the clock. They don't know how to challenge. They don't know how to use their timeouts. Some of them are clueless. Coach Shula was really, really good at that because he loved doing that. And sometimes he would go into one game was a Monday night. It was a close game. We're fighting, and all of a sudden he's kind of in like a delay, and we're like, what the hell's he doing here? And the next thing you know, we're backed up, and because he's setting up taking a safety. And we take the safety, and we won the game easily. And he saw that way before anyone else thought that this was coming. He actually orchestrated it. And he didn't tell any of us. He just was calling plays, and, I'm getting ready to punt. I'm thinking, what are we doing? We're backing up. I get Reggie Roby. I'm having a heart attack. And next thing you know, I realized what's going on. Oh, we're going to take a safety. That's what he did exceptionally well.
Mike, you brought up Sean Payton, and I know we brought you on to talk about Coach Shula, but I do want to ask, since you threw Taysom Hill out there and Jameis is now the backup, when Drew retires, Jameis going to be the quarterback there, or is Taysom Hill going to be the starting quarterback there?
I believe it's going to be Taysom Hill. Of course, that's my guy. I got him started. I found him. That's my guy. If anybody say what they want, because he had never even stepped on the football field till I went down there. And I got him active and got him going. So I love him. In fact, I just talked to him the other day. I believe they're going to give him a chance. I think they like him. He throws the ball way better than what you would imagine. Now, this is a whole new can of worms they added with Jameis Winston. And with Jameis Winston, that could go a little different direction. I'm not 1,000% sure how that'll work. It's a very complex offense. It's not easy to learn. He'll have the one thing I do like Winston talked about was going to graduate school at Harvard. He said, I'm going to quarterback grad school, and that's exactly where he is. So those guys are really, really good. And if you're not sure of that, take a look at what that Joe Brady that left that staff, and take a look at what he did at LSU. And that's the same system. It's pretty good now. Those guys know what they're doing. I mean, the LSU, all of a sudden, that quarterback's the number 1 pick in the draft. And that guy came right from the Saints staff. So this is what I think Winston, that's a smart move in my opinion for him. He's gonna really learn some football with those guys. How it'll all transgress, that's a good question. I'm not sure. I kind of believe that, and it could go packages with Taysom, but Taysom Hill can do it. I think I really caught help around the Super Bowl time because I talked about that. I thought he threw the ball better than, the guy called him, help me with his name, quarterback.
Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, Lamar Jackson. I said he throws the ball better than him. And I mean it. I really believe it. Not that I'm saying he's a better quarterback. I'm not saying that. But Taysom Hill can really throw the football. Now, this guy can throw. He's good. And he's so much faster than what anybody thinks. If you race the fastest 3 guys on the New Orleans Saints team, he'd be in the race. He'd be in the race. That's how fast he is. People don't know that. This is really a football player. So I think, to answer your question, and I know I bounced around a little bit, I think it's going to be Taysom Hill. I believe that. We'll see. We'll find out, but it'll be interesting.
Mike, hope you're healthy. All right, it's great talking to you.
Same with you. And thank you for asking me about Coach Shula. He was a great person in the National Football League, and it was an honor to be with him all those years. And I actually just talked to him not long ago, and I was very proud of my relationship with him that I maintained over the years. So thank you for doing that for me.
Well, thank you for doing that for us, Mike. We always appreciate your time. And as David said at the beginning, it's been too long, and that's on us. We'll make sure we do this sooner than later. Best of luck with the book. We can't wait till you finish it so we can get some of the stories that you're going to include in it. And when this is all done, we owe you a round of golf or 4. Be well, Mike.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mike Westhoff, over 30 years, an assistant in the NFL, including a 10-year stint with Don Shula, the final 10 years of his career with the Dolphins. And then Jimmy kept him on, and then he ended up going to the Jets. Mike Westhoff, kind enough to join us here on Miller and Moulton. Don Shula was Coach of the Year 4 times. And, they name everything. And yet, I don't believe they have a name on the Coach of the Year award. This was a missed opportunity by the NFL. Don't you think you could have made it the Don Shula Coach of the Year award?
Probably
if they'll do
probably
that now.
will be this year.
Yeah. That seemed like a missed opportunity.